Hello, and welcome to My Little Country Living. I'm Tommy Ray. Today we're going to make one of my all-time favorites, a pan pizza. We're going to make this in our cast iron skillet. Now, pan pizza reminds me of my childhood. When I was growing up, my parents always took us to Pizza Hut and we'd order the pan pizza. You know, my favorite part of that pan pizza was along the edge of the crust, they would have that cheese that had just gotten cooked against the edge of the pan. It was nice and crisp and it was so good. And then who can forget about the bottom of that crust itself, where it was actually like fried in that pan from the oil that I put in the pan. It's amazing, and I'm going to show you how to go ahead and make that at home. The first step in making our pan pizza is to make the dough. And to make the dough, we simply need 2 cups flour, a teaspoon of salt, a packet of yeast, and 8 ounces of warm water. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll start with our 2 cups of flour. Let's add our teaspoon of salt. Next is the yeast. You can either use a packet of yeast, or if you just have the bottle, 2 1/4 teaspoons equals 1 packet. 1, 2, and 1/4. Okay, now you want to mix that together. You can go ahead and use your hands, since you're going to be using your hand to knead the dough. And just mix the dry ingredients to get them all just mixed in there together before we add our water. Okay, 8 ounces of water. And that you want that to be warm water. And we're just going to mix this by hand. And the reason why we're using all this water is because in the high water volume dough, you don't need to knead it as much, because the water itself will help activate the gluten so that the dough itself will be elastic and rise. Okay, after you've mixed it together and it's going to be very loose and wet, we'll go ahead and cover that with some plastic wrap, and we'll place that in the refrigerator overnight. And then tomorrow we'll go ahead and take it out and finish making pizza. While the pizza dough is in the refrigerator, we can go ahead and make our no-cook pizza sauce. Now, this pizza sauce, it can be made 24 hours in advance, so you literally can go ahead and make it right after making the pizza dough and stick it in the refrigerator to go ahead and let the seasonings mesh together. Now, the ingredients for the no-cook pizza sauce are a 14-ounce can of tomatoes, 1 garlic clove that is minced up, 1 teaspoon of olive oil, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of sugar, a 1/4 teaspoon of oregano, and 3 to 4 basil leaves that are chopped up. Okay, so we have our 14.5-ounce can of whole tomatoes, and we're going to go ahead and just take those out and put them into the bowl, but we're not going to dump it because we don't want all of the juice from the tomatoes to be in there, because we want this to be a nice little chunky type of sauce and not overly runny. There, so you can see we left in a lot of the fluids. Next, we'll add our clove of garlic that we diced up, 1 teaspoon of olive oil, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of oregano, and our basil that we've got diced up or cut up. Okay, next we're just going to go ahead and crush these by hand and crush all the tomatoes and mix everything together by hand, just like they used to do in Italy back in the old days. Okay, now that our sauce is made, we're going to go ahead and cover that with plastic, and we'll put that in the refrigerator for tomorrow as well. Okay, the next step is to get our cast iron pan, and we're going to put in 3 tablespoons of olive oil onto the bottom of the pan, and that is to cook that bottom of that pizza while it's baking. Those will give a nice crust, a nice seared crust to the bottom of that pizza. Okay, here I have some pizza dough that I actually made yesterday, and we're going to go ahead and put that into our cast iron pan. This dough I had sit out for about 30 minutes after once I took it out of the refrigerator so that it could come back to room temperature. And then we're just going to press it down, pressing it towards the edges of the pan here. And you see that excess olive oil in there, but that's going to cook the bottom of that dough and really make it tasty. And it's okay that we got some olive oil that's coming up to the top of the dough. That's fine, it's not going to hurt it. Okay, next we're just going to cover that with plastic and let it sit for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. I'm just going to reuse that same plastic from before. Alrighty, now it's been 90 minutes, so we're going to take off the plastic from our pizza dough, and I've got about a half cup of that pizza sauce we're going to go ahead and put on there and then spread out. Spread that all out. Take that all the way up to the edges there. Great. Now I've got 3 cups of cheese. And for my cheese, I like to do a mixture of 1.5 cups of mozzarella and 1.5 cups of Munster cheese. The Munster cheese really gives it a nice blend, and it's what makes the pizza cheese really nice and gooey. So when you take a bite and you pull it out of your mouth, you can get that long strand of cheese. So we're going to go ahead and put that all in there. And one of the things you want to do is you want to put a bunch of cheese up against the edge of the pan, because this is going to cook and make that crust, that cooked cheese crust on the edge that everybody loves when they have pan pizza. So go ahead and put that all the way up to the edge there. And then I'll spread the rest throughout evenly. Okay, you can either stop right here and have just a cheese pizza, or you can add your favorite toppings. So I'm going to add some toppings here. I like some green peppers on my pizza, so I'm going to add some green peppers. I'm also going to add some pepperoni. And finally, some chunks of Italian sausage. Okay, now our pan pizza is done. We're going to go ahead and take it and put it in the oven at 400 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes. And we'll check back in about 25 to 30 minutes. Okay, it's been 25 minutes and we've got our pizza out of the oven. Now we're going to go ahead and let it cool for about 3 minutes. Once that happens, we're going to take a butter knife and loosen the cheese from the sides, and then we'll check the bottom of the crust to see how that cooked. And if we want it to be a little bit more crispy or cooked a little more, we just simply turn on the burner on the stove and cook it for a couple more minutes on top of the stove. Alrighty, it's been 3 minutes. As you can see, I can take the fork all along the edges here and it comes clean. So what you want to do now is check the bottom to see if that's cooked enough for you. Oh, look at that beautiful edging on that crust. That's what you want to see. Okay, so that crust looks good. It's a little bit light, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the stove on for a couple minutes and just finish cooking it on the stove. Okay, so our pizza is done from the time on the burner, so we'll go ahead and remove it and let it sit here on a cutting board. Alrighty, that looks good, doesn't it? Let's take a look there at the bottom. Okay, everything's cooked through. Nice. We're gonna let that sit for about 5 to 10 more minutes just so that the cheese can cool down, and then we'll cut it and it's ready to eat. Wow, that looks good. Time to go ahead and cut that baby up. Thanks for joining us today in My Low Country Living as we made homemade pan pizza in a cast iron skillet. If you enjoyed this recipe, then please don't forget to hit the like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to see more videos like this one. Thanks.